Good morning. This is Apostle John Welty with Second Eighth Week Ministries, and today is June 3rd of 2012, and we're going to be introducing the elements of the gospel, okay, the 12 elements of the gospel of Christ. And these elements, okay, these 12 elements, they form the pattern of God's covenant knowledge for our faith in Christ. And these are God's spiritual DNA, which make up the pattern of life in Christ, okay, and that we may know Him by this pattern, okay, and it's essential that we have a foundational understanding of these 12 elements, okay, and how they work and the pattern that God has set them in, okay, the due order, which makes known to us the due process through which the Spirit works. So it's really very important for us to have an understanding of these 12 elements, which form the foundation of the knowledge of Christ, which is the covenant knowledge that God has provided for our faith. So we're going to pick up here on the second element of the gospel, okay, which is the element of faith. Now, faith is the element that tells us how God expects man to reciprocate or respond to grace. Okay, so faith is the element that tells us how God expects man to reciprocate or respond to grace. All right, so in other words, God gives grace with expectation, doesn't He? Okay, He's in expectation of faith, and faith is the element, all right, that defines that. So in this element, we see that there's a responsibility on our part. Now, God initiates grace, and then there's a responsibility on our part in response to grace, isn't there? All right, this is an action step that we take in response to grace. Okay, so faith is an action step that we take in response to grace, which God issues. Okay, so it means that you first recognize grace, and then yield your mind and emotions to the revelation of the Spirit as Christ is being made known to your understanding. Okay? So faith is also the measure of God. Faith is the measure of God. God gives us the tools, He gives us truth and the priesthood to express our faith, to reciprocate Christ, and to return, and in return, God reciprocates to us the likeness of His holiness, charity, and fruit. Okay, so God gives us the tools, truth, and the priesthood so that we can express our faith in reciprocation of Christ, right? So faith is a reflection of that which God has revealed, right? So the tools, the knowledge, and the priesthood express that pattern perfectly, okay? That's what I'm saying here, in order to reciprocate Christ. And in return, okay, because we are reciprocating that which God has provided for our faith in grace, we're reciprocating in kind, through the knowledge, the tools, the knowledge, and the priesthood. Then God reciprocates to us the likeness of His holiness, charity, and fruit, okay, which is what we want. So thus, faith is how you use the building blocks of God's knowledge to reflect Christ and thus please God. Okay, this is how we please God. So let's take a look at that in Hebrews chapter 11. Hebrews 11 verses 6 through 8. All right, which read, but without faith it is impossible to please Him. Without faith it is impossible to please God. For he that comes to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek Him. Okay, in verse 7 he goes on, by faith Noah, being warned of God of these of things not seen as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house, by which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness which is by faith. In verse 8, by faith Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went, not knowing where he went. So we see here that the element of faith plays the role of our obedience to His grace. Right? We're molding our confidence with that which God has revealed. God initiates, faith responds. Okay, so you can see that in the element of faith.